Okay, here's the thing. I got more of a response on that first video that I uploaded here on YouTube than I expected, and I had a lot of questions. So real quick, I'm not going to make this long. Um, I want to talk a little bit about Genesis 6. Genesis 6 is one of the most important parts of the Bible that most people don't understand or they get it wrong. Let's start at Genesis 3. Genesis 3, I'm going to paraphrase a little bit here. Uh, Genesis 3 is all about the fall. And after the fall, God says something very interesting. He talks about putting enmity between the offspring of the woman, of human women, of humankind, and the offspring of the angelic, the heavenly hosts, Lucifer, Satan, the Satans. He's going to create conflict between the two. He's going to put a huge divide between the offspring of the woman and the offspring of the angelic. That offspring occurs in Genesis 6. In Genesis 6, we find out that the sons of God saw that the daughters of men were beautiful, and they took them as wives, and they had children. They had offspring. They had Nephilim. That word, the sons of God who took those women, that's a Hebrew word that is B'nai Elohim, and that word is exclusively used for the angelic. It's used for the angels. It's used for the heavenly hosts. It has a specific meaning. You can confirm and verify that. The term is used in the book of Job. The term is used a few other places. It's very rarely used, but B'nai Elohim always means angels. And so what we have is Genesis 6. We have the angels, the fallen angels. They actually specifically were the watchers. You can read about them in Daniel. And by the way, everything that I say, I want you to make sure you go into your Bible and you research it out. You look it up. God says in his word that it pleases him that you search out a matter. He wants you to own this information. You don't just take my word for it. You don't just take a pastor's word for it, because a lot of times they're not accurate, especially these days. It's amazing. But you need to research this stuff out. Research Genesis 6. And you'll find that the offspring in Genesis 6 become Nephilim, the men of renown. A lot of them become giants. Those are real. They were real. They existed. It was an evil that took place in the Old Testament to corrupt bloodlines. So Genesis 6 is all about corrupting the bloodline. You corrupt the bloodline, you may force God's hand. God may have to destroy the world, and guess what? We find in Genesis that that's exactly what he did. The bloodline had become so corrupt by the time we get to Noah that it was only Noah and his family that were found to have pure bloodline. Specifically Noah. You'll notice when you read about Noah, it says that he was perfect in his generation. Again, look up the word perfect in the original language, in the Hebrew. It's a genetic term that's used exclusively for something that has not been corrupted, a genetic that hasn't been corrupted. It's the same term used when the Hebrews, later the Jewish nation, would seek out a perfect sacrifice. And they could only have, the red heifer as an example, the sacrificial lambs. They needed to be pure, genetically pure. And so it's a genetic term. That's the important thing to get out of that. Doesn't mean he was perfect in his generation, he was without sin, or he had great faith. That's what you're taught a lot of times in church. It's just not true. He did have great faith, and he did love God, but he was a sinner just like everybody else. The reason that he was protected and his family was saved is because his genetics were clean. He was perfect. He was genetically pure in his generation. The implication, of course, is that most of the rest of the world was not. So, again, if you don't understand, if you haven't read and understand Genesis 3, when God gives us that first prophecy, looking forward to a Messiah, and then, says that to the angelic, that he is going to put this enmity between the seed, the offspring of the angelic, and the offspring of the woman. Then we have the Genesis 6 incident, and then we have an explanation for the flood. suddenly the flood makes sense, where a lot of times for folks it doesn't make sense. If mankind, if they were just evil and sinful, and and God flooded the earth, well, isn't that why Jesus would come eventually? Because mankind was evil and sinful? Exactly. There was something else going on. And again, I challenge you to look all of this stuff up. Study Genesis 3. And it's easy today to using the internet. Study Genesis 3. Look up some of the original language. Study Genesis 6. Study it using some of the original language, and really get a feel for what took place. And once you have a general understanding, I'm trying not to go into too much detail. The Bible can be confusing enough, right? But you have to understand what God said in Genesis 3 and why he said it. Then that helps you to understand why there was this push by the angelic for a mutation of the human genome. It was an attempt to, put off the coming of this Messiah. And of course, in their minds, as warped as they were at that point in time, perhaps if they corrupted mankind and mankind chose them, God would just have to destroy all of mankind. Well, they came close to succeeding. So study Genesis 3, study Genesis 6, and I'm going to go into a little bit more detail later on. I don't want to make this too long. Again, most of my videos here on my YouTube channel I use AI. I use AI for my music. I write the lyrics and I put together the melodies on my keyboard here, and I plug them into AI. And what I use AI for is really to put it together and give me a studio version and to give me some voices. And boy, sometimes I've got to go through hundreds of prompts to try to find a voice to match what I want my song to sound like. Anyway, so I'll be back. I'm going to do more of these because I got such an amazing response. I wasn't planning on using my face on my channel. I wanted to just use avatars and, write all the words and put those words into my characters. But I got a response. And they also told me to take off the hat and remove the glasses and open my eyes. My eyes don't really open all that wide, but I'm doing the best I can. Until next time.